ancient dinosaur footprints dating back more than 100 million years. How cool is this? Water levels of the Paluxy River receded due to the major drought. That part not so cool. That is parts of northern Texas this summer, revealing footprints likely belonging to a dinosaur that once stood 15 feet tall and weighed more than 7 tons. NBC's Matt Bradley has more on other ancient items being revealed across the world by extreme drought.
It's been a long, hot summer. And not just in the States. Droughts and heat waves have spread across entire continents worldwide, killing crops, drying up rivers, and raising worries about our planet's future. Even as they reveal tantalizing glimpses of the past, normally hidden from view. Like this ornate 17th century garden in England. 300-year-old paths and hedgerows laid bare by record-setting heat. Most were revealed by falling water levels as rivers shriveled. Like this island in China and its Buddhist statues believed to be 600 years old.
比较少啊。
I'm worried, this local man said. I feel like the environment has just become quite bad. I think this is a warning to us. In Spain, a dried-out reservoir displayed an entire village swallowed when the dam was built. The feeling is nostalgic as people see the home of a family member, their own, or someone they know re-emerge, said the town's mayor. Some even date back to prehistory. In Texas, a dinosaur left these 113-million-year-old tracks. Other waterways exposed the scars of history's worst trials, like this bomb from World War II destroyed by the Italian army. And in Serbia, a graveyard where sunken Nazi warships emerged from the Danube. But other rivers convey urgent warnings about what's to come. In German tradition, these hunger stones mark the water levels that preceded famines. The oldest one, from 1616, reads, "If you see me, weep." Climate experts like Bob Ward say these hints from history shouldn't be ignored. What do you think that means for our present day?
We're seeing more intense, more frequent heat waves happening all around the world.
He says it's something we may have to get used to.
They're definitely going to get used, and it's going to get worse for at least the next 30 years until the world reduces their emissions of greenhouse gases to zero.
A new reality that's living up to old warnings.
Wow, Matt Bradley reporting for us there. We're joined now by Bill Nye. He's the host and executive producer of the new Peacock show premiering today called The End Is Nigh. Bill, great to see you. Want to talk?
The end is nigh. That was basically what got me in trouble by going to LaGrange, Kentucky Hospital after being mandated by Judge Woodall. And I showed them a picture that was written out in a comedian, funny type form of a person marching, tooting his horn, and holding a sign that said, "The end is near." That was, I think, the thing that flipped the doctor in LaGrange, Kentucky, because I hung it on the wall whenever I first got there. And that was one of the first things that he noticed whenever he come in there to see me for the first time, for the very first time. He seen that, and he said, "What is this?" I said, "Oh, that's just something that another inmate drawed of me towards being kind of funny." He goes, "No, what is this? The end is near." I said, "Well, that's talking about the end of the world." And that's whenever he snarled up his nose and said something smart, and then come back with another reaction, such as, "I think there's something wrong with you. I'm going to order for this drug to be given to you." And I said, "Why?" I said, "I was making good money down in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma." I said, "I don't even really know why I'm here because I didn't threaten nobody or nothing." I said, "Why am I here?" "You know why you're here." I go, "Well, I ain't going to take your medication." "Do what?" "Well, you just give me about 72 hours. I'll show you who's going to eat what side the cow's going to eat the cabbage. And sure enough, about 72 hours later, I got a stack of paperwork indicating that Judge Woodall had mandated for me to take this drug called Risperdal and if I didn't take it, that I would be in violation, and that the doctors was ordered to tie me down to a bed and inject it into me, even if it meant erecting it up my rear end, that I was going to take this drug because the doctor seemed fit for me to take it. Even though I still have my work clothes on, and even though I was making $2,000 a week and paying my taxes and being a predominant citizen of Oklahoma at the time whenever they drove all the way out there to pick me up. I still think it was the picture, and it wasn't so much of the picture of the fact of what was on the picture that the end is near, that struck that doctor that morning for the first time that I'd ever laid eyes on him, towards him basically going off the deep end. And sure enough, within 72 hours, I was taking Risperdal, and within a month, I started gaining weight, and within 6 weeks, I had went from 240 to 340 pounds just practically overnight because of this drug that causes obesity and breast enhancement. Well, now that was in 2013 that I actually went to LaGrange, Kentucky to be studied like a laboratory rat. This is now 2022. We're looking at 9 years later, and now look at the differences in what is going on and what has went on, and I guess what is yet to go on, pertaining to all the signs that the Bible talks about, pertaining to know that the end is near, whenever you shall see these things coming about. You know, whenever God sends forth people to give out messages, he's not doing this in a funny type way. He sends his messengers out with messages for a warning or for an advisory for people to take heed to. And if they don't take heed to those messages coming from the messengers, well, then it's nobody's fault but their own. That's the reason why I say, and I continue to say, that Dennis James Jackson, known as Juby, has done his part for the past 30 plus years in putting out all this material to all these different people that obviously didn't like my message, or they thought that I was loco, or they thought that I was cracked, or they thought that I was bringing all this stuff up for whatever type of reasons. And now, 30 plus years later, we're seeing the very things that I had been talking about and teaching people about, sure enough, has come home to us all. And I personally believe that if we do not go back to the cross and ask for intervention from God, the damages that we have already done to our planet towards draining out precious resources from the ground is only going to intensify and get worse. And in other words, until we see a movement of God and a revival from God in a Holy Ghost unique, sincere way, you know, they can dangle all the money they want to at this thing, but dangling money at it ain't going to straighten it out. Talking about it now is not going to straighten it out. It was talked about 30 plus years ago, but nobody wanted to do nothing about it. So basically the boomers, the baby boomers, are the ones that's put us where we are right now. And I'm just not talking about the baby boomers here in America, but I'm talking about the baby boomers all over the world after World War II. And of course, you got to look at the facts with the oil, petroleum tycoons that wouldn't listen because of greed. You got to also look at the ministers and the preachers because they didn't think that this would ever occur. And you also got to look at the politicians, not only here in America but throughout the world, that obviously they themselves did not want to listen to various people about various signs, that now the signs are so obvious that there's no way of denying of what's going on pertaining to our planet and our atmosphere. I mean, whenever you have water reservoirs, lakes, and rivers that are drying up all over the planet, and as I have said before, if it was all coming from the atmosphere, that would mean that the sun would be so hot that we would not be able to walk outside without some sort of clothing or protection, and be able to even begin to stand the heat rays that was coming from the sun if all this was coming from above. If all this was coming from above towards warming up our planet the way that our planet is being warmed up, we wouldn't be able to stand the atmosphere outside. So obviously the heat is being generated from some other point. The heat is coming from another substance, and that heat is coming from our very feet, that the ground that we walk on, because we have eliminated so much oil now. We have distracted so much oil out of the ground to the point that the mantle of the heat is now starting to escape into the outer layers of the planet. And of course, it's just like, you know, taking a pan full of water and putting it on a eye of a gas stove and turning the gas stove on. I mean, the more that you turn the heat up on the gas stove, and the longer that the water remains on there, the hotter the water is going to get, until the point that the water begins to start boiling. We have went through, for the past 10 years, going back into 1983 up until 1993, we went through a 10-year period there of basically a dormant state, the same as the frog in the boiling theory, that if you gradually turn the water up real slow, that the frog is not aware of his surroundings until it's too late, and then the frog basically dies because now the water has become too hot. To the point that if you'd have thrown the frog off into the water while the water was boiling, the frog would have immediately jumped out, because the frog wouldn't have become adapted to that heat. He wouldn't have become adapted to the surrounding circumstances. For the first 10 years since 1983, leading us up into the early 90s, was the era that basically was the frog in the water theory towards us feeling a bit uncomfortable, but not to the extremes of what it is right now. And of course, whenever Al Gore run for president 20 plus years ago, scientists had already foreseen that there was extensive major changes going on, but didn't nobody want to believe them. Didn't nobody want to believe Al Gore? Didn't nobody want to believe other scientists and meteorologists out there that was talking about these things, because they thought that it was crazy. They thought that these people was a bunch of owl lovers and tree huggers and environmentalists that basically was doing these things for a prop, or they was doing these things to control people's lives, or they thought that they was doing these things because it was something that the environmentalists wanted to do. And it couldn't have been further from the truth. It could not have been further from the truth pertaining to their motives, because their motives was to save us from our own doom. And that was my motives too as well, towards trying to save us from our own doom. And of course, if you look at what happened during Jesus's finale that occurred during the time that he was with us, you know, there towards the last, he went up into the mountain and he said, "Jerusalem, Jerusalem, I've gathered you together, but you would not listen. I've gathered you together even as a hen would gather her chicks, but you still would not listen." So Christ at that point in time was trying to spare or save the people around that area, towards Christ saying that this generation shall not shall not escape the things that will be falling upon to the earth. And he's talking about each generation, generation from generation to generation to generation. And if you'll look at the occurrences that was going on during the time that Jesus was with them, and then after what went on in that region, it was horrifying pertaining to the things that went on. Well, each generation, it has now expanded. It has exceeded in every level imaginable, not just on a physical level, not just on a spiritual level, but also on a scientific level, to the point of where we are today, of seeing these massive, massive weather changes, of going to extremes from one event to another, that are all the repercussions towards what humanity has done or has not done in listening to various people trying to warn them and tell them ahead of time that these things was sure enough on its way. Well, this is what happens whenever you don't listen to the messengers. Even though you may not like the message, this is what happens to the people that does not take heed to the messengers. Let's listen to some more of this, because I found it to be quite interesting this morning in how that they was tagging off on this one individual that was basically starting this, I don't know if it's a podcast or what he's going to do here, but I think he seems like he seems like that he's in it in a way for an entertainment drama type series, like The End Is Near or The Day After, or any of the above. But if you watch and listen to what he has to say, it really makes a whole lot of sense. Please listen.
Great to see you. Want to talk about the show in just a moment, but your reaction to that piece, on the one hand, those are breathtaking discoveries from history. On the other hand, the reason we're seeing them is frankly terrifying.
Yeah, okay. That's bad. Let's get to work. Let's learn from this. So I think we're reaching a point. People have talked about this for 30 years, or when 1988, over 30 years, people have talked about the very things we're seeing now. There'll be extreme droughts. The weather storms will get more severe, and there'll be big fluctuations in temperature that will affect everyone in the world. And largely, this has been dismissed for decades, but now it's affecting everybody, and everybody can see the effects of climate change. And so I believe that we're going to get to work on it sooner rather than later. And the so-called Inflation Reduction Act is providing $369 billion for climate change, $4 billion to relieve droughts out west, or to prepare for droughts out west. And that's significant for me because the conservative states, represented by conservative politicians who may have voted against climate change legislation in the past, may now come around, and we can all work together on this.
Yeah, it's impacting all the states out there. If you look at Lake Mead, for example, that provides water to 25 million people across
25 million people are being affected by what's going on just in America alone out west right now, pertaining to our water reservoirs, pertaining to the droughts, pertaining to the extreme weather patterns that now have caught up with all of us. And you know, to talk about something is one thing, and to actually do something is another thing. And unless we see a very, very urgent world global movement in these areas, I don't know if we may have went to the point of too far of not being able to reverse it. I mean, stupid is as stupid does, pretty is as pretty does, but I mean, there has to be some sort of understanding, even with the even with the deniers, the doubters. You know, Thomas was a denier in the Bible until he actually looked upon to Jesus, and Jesus said, "Blessed are ye Thomas, for now you believe, but blessed are those even more so of those that believe and has not seen the Lord Jesus Christ, indicating that their faith and their experiences towards what they've went through in their lives, they know that they know that they know that God is real and that the Lord Jesus Christ was real. Well, we have reached that tipping point now, that now those that didn't believe and those that didn't want to take heed to these drastic measures that's going on all over the world, that is undeniable. Now we've reached a tipping point that now we're starting to feel and see the consequences thereof. And like I said, we can throw all the money we want to at this thing, but unless God super exceeds this particular event, world global event, in intervention because of our stupidity, I'm just afraid that what we have seen so far is only a tip of the iceberg towards what we're going to end up seeing. I really and truly believe that. And, regardless whether it be a mad doctor like I obviously come across there in LaGrange, Kentucky, by being ordered by the state of Kentucky of being studied because of Judge Woodall in Cadiz, Kentucky, in Trigg County, Kentucky, Western Kentucky, or it be some other type of person that's basically deranged to the point that they're, got the spirit of the Antichrist spirit to begin with. I'm just afraid that we're going to see horrible, horrible, terrorizing events that's going to come because of this, regardless whether it be too much rain or not enough rain, because we know for a fact now that the environment has warmed up above the clouds so hot that that's what's causing the moisture level to go even higher than what it normally does. And because it goes higher, it creates more of a pocket of moisture once it goes that high. And of course, whenever it does release it, it releases it all at once. And it's got to the point now that you're very, very fortunate if you get just a regular shower. If you get just a regular, slow, drenching, 2 or 3 day shower off and on, rain, stop raining, rain for a while, stop raining, moderate rain and stop for a while, which that's the things that the agriculture communities really and truly need. And we was fortunate this year that we did get a time period of that helped the corn that was struggling at the time of going ahead and halfway maturing. A lot of it had done already been crippled by the drought, and that's basically what brought the beans out of the ground. But unless we get some more rain within the next 3 to 4 weeks, the beans that have that looks green and looks very, very plentiful. I went out just as of 3 or 4 days ago and checked some of the beans out here where I'm at, and the hulls are empty. The hull is there, but there still is no bean. Well, why is there not no bean? Because once more, it takes a certain amount of moisture for that plant to create or to manifest, to birth that bean inside that pod. And if you don't get adequate moisture, you're not going to get adequate bean. And if you do get a bean, it's going to be like twice as small as what the bean ought to be. I was seeing yesterday, because I was up towards McKenzie, Tennessee, going up towards Paris. That's whenever they had the special tribute for the state trooper that wound up dying because of a aviation accident. Anyways, they shut down basically almost all of McKenzie whenever they brought this guy back there at the funeral home. But in between McKenzie and Paris, they're doing a whole lot of road construction towards repaving their roads, which needed to be done, and seems like they're doing a good job. But I noticed that there was a farmer that was actually picking corn, and half of the corn was still green. And it was kind of an unusual sight by seeing that, of seeing a combining corn, and about a third of the corn still green. And I thought to myself, well, he probably weighed it out, the difference between what the penalty that he's going to get on the moisture level being too high versus getting his crop in early, or his harvest in early, because usually your corn or your beans or your wheat or whatever, it starts out high and then it moderates to a lower price. I said he's probably hitting that high market right now, even though he's catching a blow on the moisture. It's making up the difference in hitting the market right now, with the market being so high. In other words, if you're getting let's say if you're getting a 25-cent per bushel dock on your corn, but you're in the market right now to where you're actually getting $2 more a bushel than you would be if you waited 30 days from now, that farmer weighed that out and said, you know what? I'll sacrifice the quarter for the $2 and minus uh, uh, the loss, and still come out with $1.75 more per bushel ahead than I will be if I wait another 2 to 3 weeks and combine the corn. And a lot of farmers has to make decisions like that, because you're kind of caught in the middle of damned if you do and damned if you don't. And if you don't make that critical decision in the market, if you wait too long, and if you don't have your crop in contract, a lot of these farmers are smart enough that they'll contract wheat or corn or beans scheduled a year ahead. Well, that guarantees you that you're going to get that amount of money. But what if the market goes crazy and you got it scheduled, let's say, for $6 a bushel, but because the market has went crazy, now it's paying $10 a bushel? Well, guess what? You still got to get $6 a bushel, because you went in contract with that market at that range. That means you're going to lose $4 a bushel because you contracted $6 a bushel to make sure that you had that much of a guarantee. Farmers today is almost like gambling in a casino, or gambling on a horse track race. It has become that critical, to the point that from one year to another, you don't know what to expect out of the prices pertaining to the market. You don't know what to expect out of the weather. And you don't know what to expect out of your machinery, of whether or not it's going to hold up, or whether or not it's time for you to do a complete total overhaul, or whether or not the piece of machinery is so bad you just need to go ahead and replace it and get a whole new combine or a whole new tractor. I mean, there's so many critical decisions in the agriculture community that can be a game changer towards either a game buster towards being successful, or actually going bankrupt. It's that critical with the agriculture communities today. And one bad decision, let's say that farmer, he went ahead and contracted that corn for the year before that, of this amount of corn, this amount of acres, and now he's only getting $6 a bushel, but he could have got 10, or he could have got 11 or $12 a bushel. That right there could make the difference on making it or breaking it, because as you can see, the way the inflation has went up, it just hasn't went up on one or two items. It's went up across the board on everything. In other words, the very same combine a year ago that you could have purchased for $662,000 is now $728,000, because the labors went up, the parts went up, the transport of those parts has went up. Everything has went up. So whenever it affects one thing, it also affects another. And can that farmer actually survive this year off of making $6 a bushel whenever he could have been making 10 or 12, based upon the fact that tires has went up, fuel has went up, fertilizers went up, seed has went up, everything else has went up. It is a gamble. Actually, you're probably got better chances of coming out on top by going to some sort of gambling casino, because at least you know what the odds are. Whenever you're farming, you don't know what the odds are from year to year because anything can hit you. Bugs, floods, famines, all kinds of stuff can happen. Your tractor can blow up. Fuel can go out of sight. Fertilizer can go out of sight. These are all areas that the farmer does not have control over, including, yes, Mother Nature. So whenever you step onto the playing field towards being an agriculture farmer, you have stepped into a environment that is just about as unpredictable as, I don't know what I could compare it with, but it is very, very unpredictable from year to year, from season to season, towards what the agriculture community has to endure, not knowing what the repercussions is going to be from year to year. That's another thing that we're looking at right there pertaining to the drought, the weather patterns, that they're now figuring out that so many farming industries out west rely upon pertaining to the irrigation system whenever they dig down into the, I call them aquadors. I think they're called something else, aquagriffs or something like that, down below the ground where the cracks of the water is. Basically, you have streams of water down below your feet, and you can drill down in there and get a good supply of water. But what they're finding out now is that it's not only helping to drain the upper table of the water pertaining to the reservoirs, the water reservoirs that we're seeing like Lake Mead, the Colorado River, but it's also draining the aquadors to the point that these underground streams are drying up. Whenever I looked the other day and I seen what was going on in Mexico, with Mexico being 28 million people plus, and how that their water reserve system has dried up just within the past 5 or 6, 7 years, I thought to myself, well, that right there explains why probably a lot of people are wanting to leave Mexico and go somewhere else, is because they've got enough common sense to realize that without water you die. And once the people realizes that their water supply, their what little bit of fresh water supply that they got is basically doomed, well, then the way that they look at it, that they're doomed. No wonder so many people is migrating towards wanting to come to America and getting the heck out of Mexico and South America, is because people can obviously see these problems that's coming over the horizon. But yet, no, like the guy was talking about on TV, we still have these climate deniers that still refuses to acknowledge the truth. These are the consequences of what man is doing to this world. And if we do not wisen up to these things, I'm just afraid that we may have already went to the point of no return, to the point that we may not be able to fix this. It could get really, really harshly bad within the next 2 to 5 years from now if we do not turn this around, either on a physical level or on a supernatural level pertaining to God. If we do not turn this around, there's going to be serious repercussions on us ignoring the truth.
Bathtub ring that shows just how low the water levels have reached there, revealing artifacts of their own as well. Bill, want to talk about your show? Premieres today on Peacock. It's called The End Is Nigh. Let's take a quick look.
Why is it that every disaster movie begins with someone in power ignoring a scientist?
People are sick of all the doom and gloom.
Because it happens more than you might think. This is gonna really huh? It doesn't have to go down that way. Together, we can save Earth with science. Join me as I take on 6 world-ending disasters. Each one leading to my imminent doom.
Now that is a trailer, Bill. That's how you sell a show about science. Let's talk about some of these events that you look at to save the planet. The first one is a hydra storm. What is that? What would it bring with it, and how do we stop it?
Well, Hydra is the multi-headed monster. So certain computer models predict we could have multiple enormous hurricanes around the world at the same time. 4 in the northern hemisphere, 1 in the southern hemisphere, according to some software people have carefully written. And so that would be catastrophic. So what we want to do is prepare for that. And sure enough, it's not exactly happening, but these floods in Texas, Kentucky, just shows you how difficult things get for people when we can't control enormous rainstorms. So we got to get ready for that. That's one disaster that we present.
Bill, most of what you're talking about, most of what you're going to refer to in your series that begins tonight, what we were just talking about a few moments ago, Lake Mead and the Colorado River drying up, things like that, are obvious to anybody with eyesight and common sense. But what do we do about the host, an increasingly large number of people, climate deniers? We're on the verge of having water wars in the western part of this country. What do we do about the climate deniers?
Well, this has been a problem for 30 years. But as I say, I believe now the effects of climate change are so obvious that people will come around. And when it comes to water out west, these are generally very conservative politicians managing a natural resource. And understand, in the United States, the West depends on water. It always has. And people have discussed the problems associated with drawing state boundaries on north and south lines rather than on watersheds. But that aside, we now have to manage this water. And a problem will come when it does rain again out west here. And there'll be, the ground won't have the plants, the ground cover that it would normally have. And so there'll be mudslides, and which is also very costly. Of course, it affects people's quality of life, but also it affects the economy when you can't move goods and services around on roads. And this is all easy, or it's all straightforward. But what do we do about it is what we're going to discuss in this The End Is Nigh show. And that's, by the way, climate is just one of the disasters, everybody. We got 5 more. We got 5 more world enders. And let me just point out that the Earth will be here. The Earth's not going anywhere. We want to save the environment, or preserve the environment, or conserve our resources for us humans. And this, when you state it that way, it's obvious. But what we want everybody to work together to address these big problems through preparation. If we had these coronal mass ejections, these are streams of charged particles from the sun that could interact with the Earth's magnetic field and shut down all the electricity in the world, that would be catastrophic. But there are steps we can take to prepare for that. Just good old physics. We could prepare for that. And it requires investment, and it requires agreeing that we have a problem and then working together to get ready for it. So everybody check out the new series. It's different. It's a new type of show where we have a disaster, some disclosure. At the end of the first half hour, I get killed.
Oh my God.
6 different ways.
Wow.
But then in the second half hour, I come back and we talk about how we can address these issues with science.
Yeah. At least you can't kill off the star in the first act, so I'm glad they brought him back.
I know, and Bill teased 5 world enders, I believe, that you're going to talk about on.
See, this is on an entertainment level of what they're doing here, which it's still, in a way, bringing it to the forefront, to the table towards the seriousness of this, in a way. But the way that he's doing it is more of a drama fiction type novel, but it's not fiction. And it shouldn't be drawn into some sort of a marketing scheme to be able to get viewers, to get your ratings up so where people will want to watch your show. It should be educational of what the professionals and the experts have lacked to do in the past 30 plus years, that people like Al Gore and myself repeat ourselves again and again and again towards saying that because of the greed and the selfishness coming from the conglomerates, they have managed to hoodwink, bamboozle, deceive, blind the vast majority of the people on the planet. And because of it, now all of a sudden we're all supposed to awaken because the truth has suddenly arisen. Well, guess what? The truth had already arisen 25, 30 plus years ago, that scientists had already discovered, but nobody wanted to listen to them. Just like nobody wanted to listen to the messenger coming from the Windmill Ministries missions, because they all thought he was crazy. They didn't want to support the things that the messenger was talking about because they didn't like the message. Well, it's not my fault that obviously you was not smart enough to identify the message pertaining to it's not my message. I'm not the author of the book of Revelations and Daniel. As a matter of fact, I'm not the author of none of the books in the book of life. All I am is the messenger, the carrier pigeon, to be able to bring forth the message. But man, have they ever persecuted me, especially here in Northwest Tennessee, and tried to provoke me to this very same vocabulary of the subject matter in which I had been teaching for 30 plus years. But they have failed. And in their failure, they have brought now harm and hurt into their own lives because of their hard-headedness and the schemes that they was projecting towards trying to destroy some of God's people, now are coming back and destroying themselves. Oh, what a tangled web that we do weave when first we look and then we realize we have been deceived. That's the reason why I say the things that I say. I don't know if we have went to the point of being able to reverse it. And it would take such of a drastic, urgent move from the global society, from the world, to be able to do this on levels that it would be a phenomenon if we could actually reverse it. And we're not going to be able to do it just by physical strength alone. It's going to take a supernatural ability to do this by the intercession of the superpowers pertaining to the Creator, in pardoning our ignorances and pardoning our stupidity towards us not taking hold to these messages way before now. It's going to take God to change it, because we're on a course right now of self-destruction, not just monetarily, not just economically, not just inflationable destruction, but physical destruction, physical collapse. I mean, whenever you have thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands and possibly millions of people that cannot get a drink of water, you're going to have a humanitarian crisis on your hands like you've never seen before. People can live a certain amount of time without food. They've been doing it for years and years and years over in Africa. But the environment has become so raw in Africa just within the past year or so, to the point that even livestock, animals can't survive it. Well, whenever animals and livestock can't survive that environment, that means that humanity can't survive that environment. And now it's resonated into bringing out the headhunters, the Zulus, over in Africa, to the point that now it's just fit to the fittest. In other words, only the survivist is going to survive, or the smartest, or the meanest, or the cruelest, or whatever. Yeah, and it could get that way all over the planet. We think that our resources is unlimited. We have taken advantage of this situation, regardless whether it be food or water. And now we're starting, this is only the beginning phases of the sorrows that it talks about in the Bible, where it says that there will be woe, woe, woe unto the humanity here upon to the planet, the inhabitants here upon to the planet. And if you don't believe me, read the book of Revelations for yourself. It's exactly what it says. And now we're here. Sadly, now we're here. Not entertainingly like, but literally, reality like.
Six. Well, the one I want to hear about is how do you stop a comet? That's one of your episodes.
Oh, I love that one. No, so everybody understand that I have a day job. I'm head of the Planetary Society, which started by a guy I took a class from, Carl Sagan. And we talk about this problem all the time. We'll be presenting at the Astronautical Congress in Paris in a few weeks. But coming up, everybody, we have the dual asteroid redirect test, the DART mission. So people laugh, but look, there is no evidence. In Texas, you see the dinosaur tracks in the Paluxy River. There's no evidence that the ancient dinosaurs had a space program. If they did, it wasn't good enough. And so we present on the show, the traditional ways people have proposed to give an asteroid or a comet. The nucleus of a comet is just like an asteroid. It just has more water ice. So you get a tail when it's in sunlight. I mean, it's the same, roughly the same material. Roughly could be a pun. Anyway, so what you do is you cause some of the material on the comet to eject, to ablate, to burn off. And the way you do that might be with a nuclear weapon in space. There's no sound in space. So. Or the one I like is hitting it with lasers, which is actually reasonable. Hit it with lasers and cause the surface of the comet to ablate, to burn off. And the momentum of the burning off stuff would give it a nudge. But the key to the whole thing, everybody, is finding these objects. As the saying goes, looking for an asteroid or a comet is like looking for a charcoal briquette in the dark. Ooh. Very difficult to see, but they do glow a few hundred kelvins above absolute zero. If you have the right instrument in deep space, you can find it. Something not the James Webb Space Telescope so much as an instrument with a spacecraft with similar instruments on board. And we support these missions. We go to U.S. Congress and, hey, everybody, this is a worthy investment. This is a worthy use of our intellect and treasure to keep the world from ending.
That's a worthy goal. We've got hydrostorms, super volcanoes, solar flares.
But at least, okay, as we say, low probability, high consequence. Yes, check out the other 5 episodes. It's already streaming on Peacock. Thank you very much for your support. Let's change the world.
Apocalyptic dust storms, comets slamming into Earth, and finally, the mother of all disasters, a ring of fire that unleashes earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions around the globe. But Bill Nye has the solutions. Don't worry. The new series, The End Is Nigh, premieres today. It's streaming right now on Peacock. Bill, thanks so much. Good to see you. That does it for us this morning. We'll see you right back here tomorrow morning. Jose Diaz-Balart picks up the coverage after a final quick break.
Once more, these are all the things that the founder of the Windmill Ministries, which is myself, that have been punished for in trying to put out these advisories. And my point has always been, how come the weatherologist that sees impending doom coming would tell everybody, get ready, a tornado is coming, or bad weather's coming. Don't nobody try to put him in a nut house. Don't nobody try to arrest him or her because they're trying to save humanity from this impending problem that now is coming over the horizon pertaining to this storm. Don't nobody try to arrest them or put them in crazy houses. But that's exactly what's happened to me. for the past 30 plus years, ever since the two hands come out of heaven that spared my life whenever a 1979 Buick Regal in 1983 should have cut me completely in half. I have been persecuted. I have been punished. I have been blackballed. I have been coldly treated, ignored, grossly contested by my peers. I've been rejected by the churches. I've had politicians that have sat back and wanted me to be destroyed. And the whole time I've been trying to help them. The whole time. They was dead set to the point that they was wanting to create their own destruction. That way they could have walked with Lucifer and shook their fist in the face of God and said, look what we have done. Well, yeah, we see what you have done in the past 30 plus years, the way that you have rejected the truth and the way that you have persecuted those that was trying to help you. We see exactly what you have done. And now the consequences are going to be dire. Not just here in America, but throughout the planet. Like I said, this individual that they just got through interviewing, he's probably doing this for some sort of, I don't know, maybe somebody's helping sponsor him and giving him money to be able to use all this material in some sort of an entertaining type way. But there's nothing entertaining, there's nothing glorifying in watching one human being drowned or perish because of starvation, or die because of some sort of inflicting disease, or die because of the fires that broke out and now they've been consumed by fires. There's nothing glorifying in watching humanity come to its end. And for people to want to take this and put it in an entertaining form, to me, speaks volumes about the people that's willing to do this, because there's nothing funny about what's ahead. And the seriousness of this goes beyond anything that I can think of other than maybe breathing air. There's nothing really any more serious other than breathing air pertaining to an individual's life. And to think that they have turned their backs and they have ridiculed, they have persecuted, they have demoralized me the way that they have in the past 30 plus years, it's only because of the supernatural power of God that I can actually look at my fellow man and say, you know what? I still pity you. I still feel sorry for you. It's just like whenever I left for the third time the United Pentecostal Church the night that I left over here in Union City, Tennessee. I knew it was going to be my last night there at the United Pentecostal Church in Union City, unless there's some sort of a divine miracle that happens. Maybe the minister or maybe one of the deacons or somebody comes over here and talks to me, in which, as many times as I have sacrificed my time and worn out my automobile, and as many times as I have put in the plate, which, it may not have been a substantial amount, but it was a little bit. As many times as I've went over there to visit those people, I have yet to get a visitation from any of those, which once more speaks volume about the type of people in them disclosing their appreciation towards me ever going out there to begin with. It's people's actions is what they're going to be judged off of. Words really don't have no meanings. It's their actions in behind their words. And of course, whenever I was leaving, I prayed to God, and a sovereign Holy Ghost anointing spirit fell upon to me, because I looked across the people there at the United Pentecostal Church, and I pitied them. I felt sorry for them. Brother Caleb was not there that night. He had a sick mother. I'm sure he was attending to other businesses. But whenever I looked across the audience of those that was still there, I thought to myself the very same thing that Jesus thought, which was, I have gathered you together as a hen would gather her chicks, but ye would not listen. Ye would not do the proper and right thing. Ye was still treating me as if I was an outsider, even though I'd had connections with the United Pentecostal Church on 3 or 4 different levels, beginning in the year 2000 down in Jackson, Tennessee, pertaining to the Lighthouse Pentecostal Church, pertaining to Brother Brown and his family. They know my past. They know the investment that I've tried to make with them, but yet no, I'm still supposed to be basically like a spectator. Nobody has come to me and sat down and talked to me about, Dennis, we would like to get involved in the things that you're involved in, and maybe support some of the things that you have been preaching and teaching about for the past 30 plus years. Nobody has sat down and done any type of powwow with me, regardless whether it was the United Pentecostal Church, or the Baptist, or the Southern Baptist, or the Presbyterian, or the Methodist, or the Church of Christ, or the Jehovah Witness, or the Lutherans, or the Mormons, or the Assembly of God, or the Church of God. Nobody has wanted to sit down and talk to me like I was a decent, moral human being. I have been treated as if I was some sort of a freak, caged up in a freak show, going from town to town, while everybody wanted to laugh and gleam and make fun and dehumanize this individual that's talking to you right now. Nobody wanted to take the things that I was telling them seriously, beginning with the Neal family and the Sanderson family and those that live in a little community called Kenton, Tennessee, and Obion County in Northwest Tennessee. Nobody wanted to take the things that I was teaching and talking about on a serious level. Well, whenever you don't have water and you don't have food and you're dying of a very, very appalling, cruel way, regardless whether it's too much rain or not enough rain or whatever, then while they're laying on their dying bed, just like an individual that lived within about 2 miles from my house, looked up at me and said, Juby, I wish that I had listened to you. His name was David Jacobs. He's got a brother by the name of Dickie Jacobs, and Dickie Jacobs has yet to face me face to face in talking about these matters, or anybody else in the Alamo Baptist Church community, or the First Baptist Church community, or any of these other communities around here, because they rather snigger and laugh and demoralize the individual that's talking to you right now. That way they can stonewall this all the way up into the end. And in the meantime, there's going to be so many people's lives that's going to be affected. There's going to be so many people's soul that's going to go to hell. There's going to be so much damage that has already been done that they refuse to acknowledge that they was a part of doing, towards all the climate deniers and all the windmill ministries deniers, the jubilation deniers. This ministry has been denied, made fun of, basically demoralized, ever since I stood out into the eyes of the general public in 1989, and ever since 9 Tapes went to the White House in 1988. But now, according to God, all I can do is plant the seed, and I'm doing my part by making these social media platform videos and listening to people that you just got through listening to. I'm doing my part by trying to tell people again and again that it's coming, the end is near, the end is coming, even though people like the mad scientist or the doctor up in LaGrange, Kentucky, decided to want to poison me on account of it. Even though all these churches and all these politicians and all these people that I growed up with want to continue to stonewall or make fun of the very individual that's been trying to help them the whole time. Whenever it talks about in the book of Revelations how that Lucifer will go forth to deceive the nations once more again, I have been able to classify and identify 1,000 times 1,000 that that's exactly where we are right now as a nation, as a global society, in the regards towards a group of people that have been bamboozled by the works of their own works and by the works of the demonic forces. Thanks again for listening. Good luck to each and every one of us. We want to pray for you and thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. And as we say all the time, God bless America. God bless America's troops. God bless America's endeavors. And good luck to each and every one of us. Thank you and shalom.